Joe's Best Christmas by Andrew. To the most awesome study buddy, Joe. I would like to tell you the story of a young boy named Joe and some of his friends who I met many years ago when my son Jesus was born. My name is Joseph, and I know miracles can happen. I was looking for a place where my wife Mary and I could stay because she was ready to have our child. While I was walking down the street in Bethlehem, I met a young boy named Joe. He looked very lost. Turn the page. Joe told me that while he was playing hockey, he wondered what it would be like to play hockey in Jesus' time. He was so curious that he and his friends built a time machine. They got their hockey sticks, pucks, and skates and went back in time to the first Christmas. That is where they met me, Joseph. Turn the page. I walked with Joe and his friends. The boys talked about what type of games they thought Jesus might have played when he was their age. I didn't know it at the time, but they were talking about my son. Turn the page. We came to a small frozen pond, and the boys soon set up all their equipment and got ready to play the first time-traveled hockey game. Joe was so excited, and so was I, but I had to leave the boys to find a place for my wife and I to stay. I didn't know what this game of hockey was, but it sounded like it was fun. Turn the page. It was a hard night because I could only find a stable for Mary and me to stay in, while my wife and our newborn son, Jesus, lay sleeping on some soft hay. I heard the sound of cheers in the distance. I remembered the young boy Joe and his friends, and I looked at my son's face. Could my son be the Jesus they were talking about? Turn the page. I lifted Jesus into my arms and walked with him to the frozen pond. Joe looked at me, and Jesus smiled. I could tell Joe was really nervous. The game started, and Joe's team got the puck. They made their way through the other team. Joe passed it to his friends, and he shot, but he missed. The other team got the puck and brought it down the ice and scored. They were a tough team for Joe. Turn the page. Then I saw Joe's team get the puck. His friend went down the ice and passed it to Joe. Joe scored and tied the game. It was time for a break. Joe came over and sat next to me. Joe looked at my son, and I said, "Now you can play for Jesus." Turn the page. When they started to play again, Joe skated really fast, shot the puck, and scored. Joe won the game. Now I was cheering with them. I thanked Joe for sharing his adventure with me. Joe looked at Jesus, and Jesus smiled up at him. After the game, Joe and his friends walked around Bethlehem. While walking, Joe found the stable where Mary and I were staying with our baby Jesus. When he got to the stable, he saw little baby Jesus lying in the manger with his mother Mary beside him. In Joe's hand was the winning puck. Joe looked at me, and I nodded my head. He gently placed the puck in Jesus' manger. Joe saw the first Christmas and played for the baby Jesus. Now he could go home. He learned the true meaning of Christmas. I knew Joe would always want to play on Jesus' team. The end.